and I agree with everything that's being said here, is that, first and forehand, in a lot of these organizations, they've added the the administrative person who is, paid, because everything used to be volunteered done. Well, now they've added administrators because there's so much work. At the same time, the ethical hockey curriculum or coach needs to be added, because the business needs to be taken care of, whether it's the financial part of the organization. But on the other half, even more importantly, you know, is the experience that the kids, and the ethical part of the coaches have to be somebody that's there, and is, and whether they're paid or not, that's up to them. But they're not in the organizations today, Wally. That's one of the big problems that I see, is that what you're talking about is necessary. You know, you know, every part of Canada's hockey program, have administrators and have board of directors and have all that. But what we don't have is that ethical hockey person who can help groom, recruit, and set the tone from the mission statements.
A champion.
A champion, and they have to be, and there's got to be hundreds of them, across the nation. It can't just be, piecemealed around. It has to be everywhere, because that's the fundamental challenge we're having in creating a good experience for, the kids and the parents to go through.
Kerry, putting this exercise in a module of ethical coaching at every level of certification, it gets it everywhere. You are injecting philosophy of the values of what you're doing and walking the talk. It comes from coaches.
Well, and I think the funding of getting the message through, Wally, to me, has to come from, the top up. And I mentioned the NHL because they got the most to gain by creating a better process, or Canadian Tire, whoever it must be. It's going to take millions and millions of dollars to make proper change across, our hockey program. And, if we don't have that, this group is spectacular, and like you've said many a times, we're not the ones that we have to sell. We have to sell society and kids who want to play the game, and parents who are now saying they don't want their kids to play. We have to make that change, or our system will not grow, and that's a big part. So let's take this. Everything that's being said is what needs to happen. It's just, how do we make it happen? Ray's talking about bringing it all and creating it, and he's right. It is a big, big thing that needs to happen.
So I got to thank Ray for suggesting that I contact Haley. And my angle, Kerry, is they've lost funding. Hockey Canada does not exist. They're going to restructure. And it's going to take support. But however they're restructured, the value-driven base of the organization can be created, mastered over time with that idea. And I'm hoping that one of the sponsors that I'll approach, and if I have to approach others through the connections that he's giving me, will lead to them taking Hockey Canada and its new structure, apply this exercise of education for the good of the game at every level of coaching. And I'm really hopeful it happens in my lifetime. Ray, go ahead.
Just a final word. I want to share with the group what I've shared with Wally. I have a deep conviction that people like Nike and Royal Bank and Imperial Oil and Canadian Tire, they will buy into this concept if we present it and say this is how things are going to be done from now on. The funding, some funding at least, needs to go into having this part of that structure where you do have we'll call it ethical coaching, if that's what you want to call it, but that it is driven from the top all the way down. And like Carrie suggested, that you have champions in regions and locals that make sure that the coaches and the parents and even the players, because I've listened to Wally many times talk about that exercise. Everybody goes through it so that there is a commonality all across the board, and everybody sings the same song: respect, trust, and compassion.
Ray, when I introduced the exercise, it came from a gentleman named Dan Morrow. He actually applied it in the 90s, gave it to me. Dan was the director of the Center of Excellence who coached a Pee Wee AA team in Northwest Calgary with Dr. Bob Corin, the Dean of Phys Ed. They were having issues. So they created this exercise and they revisited it at Christmas. And it made the season much more enjoyable. Not perfect. I talked to Dan 6 months ago about how life is going, and he said he's going to get back into coaching when he retires, and he would do one thing differently. He said he'd leave the head coach or the assistants in the dressing room, and he would go out and talk to the parents because he's walking the talk that they agreed upon. He didn't say he's walking the talk. He's not going out there because he just said, I'm there. I'm here to help you and your kids to achieve their aspirations. And I think that's a huge part of it. And Jordan, I don't know if you've had to go back into the gym or not, but when I watched Jordan at the Firestar tournament after it was all over, he's in the lobby. He's talking to parents. It's open, and there's a degree of interaction and respect there. We're talking respect and trust. He's got it. They've got it.
I just want to throw in there.
Parents and the players. Carrie, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate also, it's not the ethical nature of the coaches that's important, okay? But it has to be ethical from these board of directors. And the people who run the organizations have to buy into the same part of the ethical part of coaching, because part of the problem we have in a lot of our systems today is the unethical people who are actually running the coaches and selecting coaches. And if they don't buy in, and if they're not a part of the whole process, then guys like us get pushed out, or guys like this on this thing here, and their views will never be brought open and what is necessary. So it's not only just the coaches, it's all of the organization.
Tim Bothwell.
Sorry, I think my hand was up from before, but I totally agree, Brack, that and the understanding on the part of those directors that as we continually advocate that at the minor level, and certainly below midget for sure, the emphasis needs to be squarely placed on fun, development, both on and off the ice, and and doing your level best to be at your level best as individuals so the team can be their best. That's where the focus needs to be. And yeah, I totally agree that there's far too many people involved that, just think winning is everything and nothing else matters.
It's almost a form of minor hockey corruption from the ages of 6 to 14 that are creating some of the biggest challenges that we're all facing, in our organizations, and it needs to be addressed.
And I totally agree. Like I was listening to CBC yesterday, and a learned professor from Western University, putting all the blame on Hockey Canada for all the things that have happened, and not a mention of the coaches at the at the minor level and the parents as the players come up. Like Hockey Canada did not create the players
No.
who committed the egregious acts. They certainly handled it very poorly after the fact, and maybe they aided and abetted by turning a blind eye and ear to comments and commentary. But it's the coaches, the directors, and the parents as the kids are developing from Timbits on up to midget. They're the ones that created those players, not Hockey Canada. But Hockey Canada needs to lead the charge in trying to change that mindset.
Yep.
Tim,
Well-
I want to mention, and Ray and I think I talked to Ray about this yesterday. In that exercise, it's really simple. Everybody writes down what they want to accomplish, get better, improve upon, you name it. And you sort it into two columns. One's outcomes and the other's values. Now, if I'm doing this at the high performance level, Tim, that's the reason I'm bringing it up. I would start with the outcomes. Win a national championship. Get more, score more goals. Get a scholarship. And then I ask the question, I create a middle column. How do you do that? Middle column is the process. By having the values you need to do everything right, the process. It's all about the team building, the respect and the trust. And of course, the X's and O's will matter. Teaching offensive attack will matter. So the way to do it at the HP level, start at the top, start at the outcome. Because they do have expectations. They're aspiring to win a national championship. But now I take a reverse approach. I only have the two columns and draw an arrow from the values column to the outcomes column and say you've got to stick with the process. You're learning how to skills. You're learning how to coach behaviors and recognize them and deal with them consistently to gain respect and trust.
And
So
and we we actually should, while Brent's on with us, it's great to have him on because
Yeah, we should,
a huge piece of this, of course, is his area of interest and expertise, and that's the whole diversity inclusion area, which is where everything went off.
I think Ray's got to go, Tim. Yeah, has his hand. Sorry to interrupt, but Ray, you had something to say there.
No, I enjoyed the moment, and I hope that we're going to keep going on the discussion and get something together that really helps sponsors to buy into the new way.
thanks, Ray.
Thanks, Ray.
Okay. Brent,
Sorry about that, Tim.
Yeah, no problem. Like, just the reason we're all talking about this, or the reason there's a big storm out there now, is because there was zero understanding, on a human level, of other human beings, and that's kind of Brent's area. Obviously, the guys involved were not very well educated or guided as young players and young people, and I totally applaud Brent in biting off the big piece of the apple here and trying to address that. And maybe Brent could talk a little bit about how what he's doing right now and how he's making some headway or not.
Brent, you got your speaker on?
Yeah, he does.
Good morning. How is everyone?
We're good.
Real good.
Okay. Really excited to talk about what I'm going to say, is because it's been on my mind. I haven't been able to sleep all night. My mind has just been running. But first of all, I'll talk about my days Jordan's program that he was running with the kids about the name on the back, but representing the jerseys. I just thought about my days playing junior in WHL. I'm just thankful for the opportunity to, as a dad, to witness the pride you see in the kids, the communication factor, because every player has a voice, every player has a personality, and we got to see that as a parent. I was proud of my daughter because she spoke about diversity and Indigenous issues on how she wanted to make other kids proud because of where she's playing. So I think it was really important for Jordan to give tools to the hockey players and also tools to the parents, because at the end of the day, it was just about well-rounded hockey players, well-rounded people, and I was so proud to see that team, and I was so proud to see my daughter as just speaking in front of the whole team. So it was a really cool team builder, one of a kind. On the second issue I want to talk about is I see this as an exciting change as Hockey Canada. This is a time to absolutely rebuild the program to where